My name's Kiran Nambiar. I started Merrill Lynch in a specific team, working with certain people. The head of that business moved to Morgan Stanley. He was like, "You should come." So I interviewed. I moved there, and then spent another 6 years at Morgan Stanley, and moved back to India. So I had no issues with shutting down a company, it not doing well. I mean, it is what it is.
But wealth is always created by two things: relationships and equity. So
Yeah.
either make equity or buy equity,
Yeah.
and have good relationships.
Well, I completely agree with him.
What do you think is the most painful job of a founder, which people usually don't see, which only you know?
Even then, I've been with him sitting in meeting rooms with all kinds of people, from like Chief Minister of Kerala to I've met the President of India when he was the chairman of IIM. I have had different amounts of money through my life, up and down, right? Especially when we were running First Main bootstrapped, it was pretty challenging.
I mean, there would be a graveyard of PPTs out there of startup founders, right?
Yeah.
Who wanted to do it, but they have not made it. Right? So I think get shit done is the only motto of a startup.
Yeah.
I would like you to give a short introduction of yourself so people know more about you.
My name's Kiran Nambiar. I've been working for about 20 years, grew up in Bangalore, studied in London, worked in London and New York, between them for about 10 years. Started my career at Merrill Lynch in banking tech, moved to Morgan Stanley in a very similar role. And after about 13 years, I moved back to India in September of 2017 to start my own business called First Main. Plan was always to come back to India and do something, and that was my first venture, which later got acquired by Tiffin, which is where I work today. And I've most recently started MyFi, which is a wealth tech app for consumers to help them with their investments, and we'll talk more about that later.
Yep. The first question is, right, why did you move to London? And what difference do you feel when you come back from US or UK and you work in India? What's the basic difference which you feel in the people you work with, and how the dynamics change between both?
Okay, so let's start with why London. So I studied Imperial College London, which also happened to be the same place that my dad went and studied at many years ago. So I have known about that college and things ever since I was a child. And my fascination with technology, coding, tech in general was started from ever since I can remember, honestly, right? I was playing around with computers when I was probably 9-10 years old, which in those days was quite rare, right? There were no cell phones or anything like that at that point in time. So for me, I guess first studying computer engineering was a no-brainer. It was a choice between the US and UK. I didn't particularly want to study in India for many reasons, but US, most courses, for undergrad, they make you do multiple courses and subjects before you specialize. It's a 4-year course. UK, you directly get into the specialization that you want. And also Imperial College is probably one of the top colleges in the world. So for me, that was a very clear choice, right? So I applied only to the UK, to multiple places. Obviously, I wanted a backup as well. But once I got in, that was a very clear decision. Your other question on what working in these different locations is like. So I would say that each place is different. One thing though, working in the West, whether that's UK, US, any of the European countries as well, they're very, very professional, right? You have a meeting at 10 a.m., people will be there at 9:59, right? Or 10, like not 10:05, 10:01. Like it really starts exactly on time, right? and I know, I'm sure you heard this a lot, but in India, in most places, it is a little loose in terms of when it starts. I want to say at my fire tiffin, the company I ran before First Main, we weren't like that. But generally, there's a little bit of like chalta hai attitude, and it's fine to be a few minutes late. So, I mean, even if you're going to a friend's place as a party, it's like if they say it's 7:30, they mean any time after that. People come at like 9:10 and things like that. So that's one big difference. I do think that in all of these places, the people at the end of the day make the biggest difference, and I've been fortunate enough throughout to be surrounded by the right type of people who are hardworking, dedicated, focused, and all of that. And typically, if they're not, they don't last too long in the company, right? So that way, I would say the experience has been very positive throughout. I have relationships that started in my first job in London, first, second job, that continue even today. They invested in my first company, First Main, when I started in India. So I would say, there are obviously cultural differences, styles of working, efficiency, and things like that, which are different. But fundamentally, I've been very focused on working with the right type of people and building relationships because they typically last a long time, right? And if it's not working out, it's not working out. It's a good idea to part ways. There's no point in trying to elongate something that isn't working. The one thing I would say in Bangalore is that traffic is a very real problem. So live close to where you work is all I would say.
Got it. When you moved out of Imperial College, you joined your first job at Merrill Lynch, right?
Right.
What was in your mind? Like, you were 21, 22 by then, I guess, right?
Yeah, I was 21.
Yep. So a 21-year-old moving to Merrill Lynch, which is again one of the biggest company in UK, right? And in world, I would say. What was in your mind? What ambition did you have then? And what did you look up to? And also, what were your fears by then? Overall, what were you thinking when you were at that stage of your life?
So, Merrill Lynch started as an internship, actually. So I was in my second year, going into my third, and looking for an internship. Merrill Lynch happened totally by accident because typically you essentially apply for internships in like October to December for the next year, right? I applied to must have applied 100 places, but definitely 60 to 100 in that range. I had many interviews. I got rejected by everybody, right? And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? In March of the next year, somehow Merrill Lynch opened up applications again. I'm guessing they didn't fill enough seats or they had more seats. I don't know what happened. Somebody told me about this. I applied immediately. And I got in, right? That was the only place I applied to. I got in. And it was just autopilot. I didn't really think about getting into Merrill Lynch or where I wanted to go. It was, I wanted to get an internship. That's where I landed. Internship went very well. I really enjoyed the work. I had a great team. And at the end of that, they offered me a job. I didn't think twice about it. I took it because I enjoyed the work. And that was it. I did have a lean towards banking because in the UK at that stage, banking paid significantly more than tech, which probably isn't the case anymore. But in those days, it was like double, literally. So, especially living in London, which is a very expensive city, I was like, look, I'm done being a student without any money. I really would like to earn something. So, I did have a lean towards banking. So, I got into Merrill Lynch, and then at the end of the internship, like I said, they offered me a full time job. I didn't think about it again. I just signed on the dotted line as soon as I got the offer, and that was it. So the following year, I joined Merrill Lynch. I started with them in like July the following year, in July 2007. The training program in those days for most of these US banks would allow you to go to New York for like 6-8 weeks or something like that. And obviously that was a pretty amazing experience as a 21-year-old, fully paid, flights, hotels, whatever. So I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. Still in touch with some of the analyst class batchmates. And yeah, so that's honestly how I got into Merrill Lynch. And it wasn't a decision I thought about so much. It was a little bit on autopilot. And since then, so I worked for 10 years between Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley, but really it was one continuous journey because I started Merrill Lynch in a specific team, working with certain people. The head of that business moved to Morgan Stanley. He was like, "You should come." So I interviewed. I moved there, and then spent another 6 years at Morgan Stanley and then moved back to India. So it wasn't like I consciously sought out another job. And I think today people move jobs very easily, and small pay rises here and there. But I keep telling people there's a lot of value in building your relationship with people, building your value within the company, and then there is a tipping point at which it changes quite drastically, even your pay, right? So I think that would be one piece of advice to most young people out there starting their career. Think about the long term, not the short term.
I know there's a college senior of mine. When I joined VIT, he was in the third year of his engineering, and he was someone who people looked up to because he was in his third year. By that, he had been a he had been a TEDx speaker. He had his own startup. He had got investments, right? And I met him. I had him on podcast, and he became one of my mentors. So he suggested me this, that okay, when you start off your career, always play long-term games with long-term people.
Yeah.
Don't go for short-term, because probably earning 5-10 lakhs here and there won't make difference in a longer run. But wealth is always created by two things: relationships and equity. So
Yeah.
either make equity or buy equity,
Yeah.
and have good relationships.
Well, I completely agree with him. Because even when I moved back to India, I think could have very easily got a high-paying job. And when we started our company, we basically burnt a lot of cash for 2 years with the idea that we could scale after that, and it totally paid out, right? In 2 years, we did some very key projects, spent way more money on the project than the client was willing to pay, because we were like, you know what, it doesn't matter what the client's willing to pay. We want to build a solid portfolio so that we can go and sell to clients. And after 2 years, we did no sales. Every project we got was a referral, word of mouth, something like that. We had no sales team, and by the time we sold, we were doing like 1.5 million in revenue. So it's and we got acquired, as you probably know, by Tiffin, and that equity paid out there, right? You just need to be willing to be patient and take the risks. And if it's not for you, that's fine. I think there is a idea that working in a startup or being a startup founder is glorious and amazing, but it's not.
It's not.
It's very lonely. I think it is a great idea to have co-founders because they share your pain, and it doesn't have to be the only path. There is nothing wrong with working at a corporate or any other company if that is what makes you happy, right? So you need to figure out what makes you happy and focus on that, not focus on what's in the news and what's today's trend. I mean, I love working in tech, AI, building products using this, but if that's not what you enjoy, don't do it, because I guarantee you will do far better and succeed if you focus on what you enjoy.
Too many tangents to talk to you with. Okay, a quick question which I had was, when you started off at Merrill Lynch or when you
Yeah.
went to London, did you had this in your mind that you want to someday start your own company, or were you focused towards working at somewhere and then it switched in your mind?
No, I was very clear that I wanted to come back to India and start my own business. So from day one, that was always the plan. My goal with working at Merrill Lynch and working in the US, UK, etc., was really to gain experience, one, and save enough money so that I could start a business without having to worry about capital. So it was very clear. In fact, I remember having this conversation in first couple of months at Merrill Lynch with somebody, one of the VPs over there, saying, "What's your plan in the long run?" And I remember telling him, in 10 years, I either want to be running this place, which seems highly unlikely, or I'm going to start my own business. So that was very clear to me right from the start. I had absolutely no hesitation about it.
Did anyone in your family have a business?
Yeah, so I mean, I generally come from a family of entrepreneurs of some sort. My dad, I would say, was probably the biggest influence in my life. He started many things through his career. He was the founding chairman and of a electronics manufacturing unit called Keltron in Kerala, which is basically a state government initiative, but he started it. He also started one of their first tech parks in India called Technopark, also in Kerala. So he did a lot of things in Kerala. So his background was also engineering, electronic engineering. And I mean, he's started a number of different institutions. He was also the secretary of the electronics department in India during the Rajiv Gandhi administration. And then when after all his government-related initiatives, he was also the chairman of ITI, which doesn't exist today, but Indian Telephone Industries. It was also during his time at the electronics departments that they started CDAC, which is Center for Development for Advanced Computing. So he's done a lot of things in his life. And then after this government initiative related tenure, he started his own company in Bangalore called Namtech, which also was in the electronics manufacturing segment. So, I've lived through a lot of this. I was a very late child, so he was a lot older and far more established when I was young. So I've even then I've been with him sitting in meeting rooms with all kinds of people, from like Chief Minister of Kerala to I've met the President of India when he was the chairman of IIM. I've been in discussions with multinational corporates around the world. So I've been heavily influenced by him in many ways, and so I think in some ways it was just in my DNA to start something. So it was never a tough decision.
I think that is where I was thinking about that. entrepreneurs are somewhere or else born, or if not, there has to be major a major phase in their life which takes them to a path of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I see in my own family and ecosystem also. The next point is, which you touched upon, and this is what I was genuinely thinking in the past 3 to 4 months, right? So at VAT and in my circle, suddenly in my generation, startup has become a very cool and a very sexy term, right? Everyone wants
Yeah.
to do a startup, right? You go to HSR layout, there will be like
Yeah.
ton of startups, right? But are we solving the real problem? Right? Because many companies solve a problem which does not exist, right? And that's the biggest issue. Also, startups seem to be aspirational, but does a startup founder need to be aspirational? I mean, sometimes in the chase of that fame, the money, or the idea of that fame and money, we discount practicality. Probably a corporate guy would make more money in 10 years than a startup founder.
100%.
Right. Then why are people discounting it? Right. Why is practicality getting discounted for aspirations?
I mean, I 100% think that in a 10-year time frame from when you start your career, unless you're really lucky, you'll probably make more money being in a corporate world, right? I think that if you become an entrepreneur or you work at a startup for fame, money, glory, any of those things, you will most likely fail, right? Because those are all the reasons you should absolutely not do it.
Exactly.
And the only reason there is money and fame is because you are successful at something, because you solve a problem that is real and you are successful at solving that problem. And as an entrepreneur, that needs to be your focus. If your focus is money or fame, I think you will absolutely fail, because the amount of stress, pressure, the just general craziness that comes with running a company is unimaginable. So unless that problem you are solving, you are passionate about, you will not be able to deal with any of this. It's just not possible, right? It is, I mean, I have lived through this multiple times, and I can tell you for a fact that running a business, starting a business is extremely hard. And I think people only hear about all the amazing success stories. And I would say that I have the utmost respect for any entrepreneur who's trying to solve any problem that they are passionate about, because the amount of sweat and blood that goes into it is very real, whether they are successful or not.
That's a really valid point, but probably I think it's a phase or it's a cycle which will come to an end sometime.
See, I think it is, cool today because, India is a maturing market, is a developing market. There are a lot of opportunities out there. There are all these IPOs happening, a lot of startups in and around Bangalore, especially HSR, Koramangala, all of these things. So it's it's definitely made out to be very cool, right? So it's probably a phase, and people will hopefully get over it and focus on what they really want to do. But there was a point when everyone just wanted to be an engineer or a doctor, right? So I think that's still there to an extent, but people are doing other things as well now, right? So I do think startups and entrepreneurship is very important, because these are the people who solve the problems that nobody else wants to solve. But you should do it only because you're really passionate about it.
When you moved back to India and you started First Main,
Correct.
what was your motivation with it, and how much did you think you aligned to it after a point of time, right?
Yeah.
Because and when you started First Main, right? What was your biggest win, and what was your biggest failure in that phase?
So First Main started with a very simple thesis, right? Which was that today design has a path which is designing products and things like that. Technology has a path which is building these things. But most institutions, companies, large, small, startups, whatever it is, especially when we started then in 2017, and it's true even today, I would say to a large extent, is that because these two were not working closely together, there was the end result, the finished product, whether it was an app, a website, or whatever it was, just never worked as well, right? And both Kinnary and Kinnary is my co-founder, strongly believed that bringing these two together could result in an experience for the user that's magical, right? And that means better conversions, whether it's e-commerce, whatever, depending on the use case, right? And that was the thesis. I think that we definitely proved that to be correct, because one of the things that a lot of people said was India is a country with like tens of thousands of service businesses. You're basically going and starting another service business. Sounds like a crazy idea. But I think in 2-3 years, we proved that that's not the case. There is certainly demand for high quality work. And we landed clients like WeWork, Titan Zoya was a client, and many other startups as well came to us to do their 0 to 1, right? So the 0 to 1 product, while they got funding and were still building the team, was built by us. Everything from their branding to the actual finished product we have done for certain companies. So that was absolutely validated, and obviously we got acquired as well. So I still think that argument holds today. And companies that have strong design teams that work closely with engineering are just able to do significantly better experiences for their customers, whether it's B2C or B2B. You asked me biggest success or failure with First Main. Biggest success validation was definitely, what I was telling you about in terms of design and tech doing well. And I mean, one very simple example, right? We went all out on this 3-page or 4-page e-commerce website for a chocolate brand called Ether Chocolate. It's a Mumbai-based boutique chocolatier. And I'm telling you, I want to say like 90% of clients who came to us said, we want something that's amazing like that. Just because of how good that experience was. It was, the site was simple, but it's like we went all out in terms of hover and how things react when people interact with it. When you click on a button, the micro interactions, all of that was just made the user feel so good, right? And he was doing like tens of lakhs through there. So I think that was a real big validation of what we were trying to achieve. Biggest failure, we had also built an e-commerce platform during that time called Rooted Objects. The idea was we use some of the design and tech capabilities we have, also brought an entirely new business, which is a marketplace of brands, sustainable brands. I think when it came to marketing, we were horrible and we just failed miserably. I also think the mistake there was probably trying to do two things at the same time without having a team that could do one, because both of them needed me and Kinnari, and that's just unrealistic. I think if you're trying to do multiple things, you need to have someone who can manage one of them, and that we didn't have, and we couldn't afford it then. So that's what I would say.
Would you like to put out a short story on how you met Kinnari?
Short story. Well, technically we went to the same boarding school, so I've known her since then, but we started dating when she was in college and I was in my 12th grade. Long distance for like 7 years. I was in London, she was here. She was in Pittsburgh doing her master's in Carnegie Mellon. I was in New York. Eventually in 2011 we got married. So so we've known each other for now. We've been together now for like 21 years, married for 13 years. Yeah. So that's the short version. Let's not get into details.
Yeah, I think it's as you said, right? Having co-founders is something which everyone should have, and if you have a co-founder which is also your wife, then there's nothing.
It either works or it doesn't. And
Yeah.
for us, it works.
It either it goes to 100 or it
Yeah.
goes to a 0. There's
Yeah.
no middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You mentioned your biggest failure. By then, you had worked 10 years into Merrill Lynch, in Morgan Stanley. You had your own team, and then when you fuck up really bad, how do you manage your ego, right? And how do you get it together? Because I think also a breaking point for any founder or any entrepreneur, which I have seen, is people break in their ego, right? That after a certain point, after a certain level, a person is reached, and if something goes wrong, right, people might not be able to, he or she might not be able to digest it well, or having some sort of overconfidence, right? So how do you get yourself together at that point, and what did you figure out after that?
I think humility is extremely important in anything you do. You always learn more from your failures than your successes, and if you're not able to accept that, then I don't think you will ever be a very successful entrepreneur. There is a difference between confidence and overconfidence and ego, right? You absolutely cannot have egos about yourself. I truly believe that I'm always learning from everyone around me, whether it's an intern to somebody senior who's worked for like 25 years or whatever it is. Like, if you're not constantly learning, then you're not going to become better, right? So I had no issues with shutting down a company, it not doing well. It is what it is. So I don't think that maybe it's my personality also, but I've always learned from my mistakes. I don't try to cover up and say no, I never made that decision or anything like that. So I think it's extremely important to be very honest, and if you're not honest with yourself, then you're never going to learn.
Got it. What do you think is the most painful job of a founder, which people usually don't see, right? Which only you know, right? That this is tough, but with a smile on your face, right? You do it every day, and people don't recognize it.
I think there are many things, but fundamentally, the hardest thing is you are often trying to solve an impossible problem, right? Whether it's first main, MiFi, whatever it might be, it is always a problem that most people will say, what you're doing doesn't make sense. There's no business here. You're not going to make any money. So you are going in every day solving a problem that everyone else thinks can't be solved, right? I think it's the toughest and the easiest thing to do because you have conviction that it's possible. So the hard part is perhaps when your critics are validated when things fail, but I honestly I don't think that it's hard. I just think it's something that you need to have a thesis and conviction for, but learn from the feedback and what you see in the market as the product evolves and things. So I would say that's where you need to not have an ego and be very receptive to feedback from what is actually happening.
I always, I always tell my college juniors who are interested in startups and all that a founder is a scientist, right? We make a hypothesis, we try to validate it. If it gets validated, probably you get a award.
Yeah.
If not, then it's fine. Make a new hypothesis.
Yeah.
Right. It's job of a scientist. When you were telling about your, conviction and critics, right? And this is something which I have been struggling with too. Is that when do you make the decision of either exiting or doubling down on your business, right? There are going to be many crossroads, right? So how do you make that call that am I exiting it now or am I doubling down on it?
Well, I think exiting is easy when you run out of money.
Yeah.
But no, but I think the doubling down is when you see signs of traction, right? When you see that people are coming back to your app, when you see that people are engaging, when you are able to convert faster, better, conversion numbers are going up, engagement is going up, that means you're doing something right. So I would say that the thing that we need to solve for is building a product that people can't live without, right? Even if it's one feature in your app that people love, that's what you need to focus on. And you need to see that in the data as well. So you need to have an idea, a thesis, execute on it, measure, see if it works, right? So over time, you do many of these micro innovations and experiments, and you finally have a product that has multiple things that people want to come back to use. So I would say double down when you're seeing traction there. And, with consumer products, I would say when there is volume, when there is stickiness, you can find there are multiple ways to monetize, right? And that you can innovate on in different ways. I think when it comes to shutting down or stopping, one very seriously is when you're running out of money, because people aren't going to give you more money on a product that has no engagement, no stickiness, when all your interaction rates and everything are looking very low. Even if you don't want to shut it down, you'll be forced to do it. So I think that's a very easy thing to do. Now, if you somehow have your own money because you had an exit, you're a second-time entrepreneur and all of that, obviously you will keep it going longer because you can. But even there, I would just say, be prudent with your own money as well. Yeah.
I think a framework which I had heard from again a fintech founder was make a budget for yourself and at a specific timeline for yourself. Let's say I have $100,000,
Yeah.
3 years. If I run out of any one of those, I'm closing.
Yeah, it was very similar for me when we started First Main. We decided 2 years we can survive without any income, and then after that we need to start seeing money. Actually, we said 1 year. 1 year happened, And then we saw that there was traction. Then we said, okay, there's traction. Let's not take money now. Let's grow. We extended that to like 3 years or 2.5 years. So it was very calculated in that sense. So yes, setting boundaries for yourself, budgets for yourself, timelines for yourself is very important.
When you find yourself in some situations, right, which require either A or B, right, you can't go with a third option.
Yeah.
What are some mental frameworks or thought processes which you use to navigate through them?
In what context though? With a product?
With product, with let's say hiring or firing someone, with making a financial decision in your company, quitting your job and starting a startup, right?
See, I mean, the framework for me is actually very clear. It's that hard decisions that may seem hard need to be easy. And by that I mean you need to be sure about it. So when you're hesitating to do something, it means that either you are not convinced or there's some misalignment there, right? So I think that, for example, when I quit Morgan Stanley to move to India, we had been talking about moving back to India for a long time. But the decision to quit and come back happened overnight. And I literally mean overnight, because I remember this very clearly. It was the middle of the night, like 1, 2 in the morning. And me and Kiran were having this discussion on, she was like, why are you awake? I said, bad day at work. It's just so much politics, blah, blah, blah. I just want to focus on doing some good work. She's like, let's go back to India. Isn't that what you want to do? I said, wait, what? We just decided to stay here a few more years. And we just had a daughter as well. Then she was like 3 months old. And we chatted about a bit, and that was it. So I basically went and quit the next day. I mean, I just signed a apartment lease and things, got out of that. But I literally went to my boss and said, I'm leaving. And they could see that there was so much clarity that they said, look, if there's anything we can do, let us know, including if you want to work in India, that's fine with us too. But it looks like you're convinced. So there was absolutely nothing that they could have done to change my mind to stay. So I would say that clarity and focus is extremely important in making decisions, right? Whether it's product features, hiring and firing, budgets, all of that, right? Because each of those things have their own constraints. Hiring and firing has budget constraints, or people are not performing and things like that. So it should not be hard. It should really not be hard. When we started First Main, we started in September of 2017. In Feb 2020, we were still only 12 people, right? But in that time, we were very clear that we wanted to build a good foundational team, a solid team, right? So we focused on quality. And we, especially on the design side, I can't even remember how many, we've hired and fired so many people because they just did not fit what we wanted, even on the engineering side. I think people hesitate a lot to fire, but if it's not fitting what you're looking for, you're not only doing yourself injustice, you're doing injustice to the person who's employed as well, right? Because they're not going to grow. And people need to find jobs that fit what they are looking for as well. So I think clarity and focus are the two things that are extremely important in any decision you make.
What is your hiring philosophy? Right, because what I have observed is, and also before coming to Bangalore, right? Any reviews I read online about Tiffin or MyFi, right? The thing which was very much focused on, or was been stressed on, is that the culture is really awesome, right? here also, since it's been a month and a half, right, since I've been working here, it's awesome, right? The people are helpful, and I think the major thing is everyone knows what to do.
Yeah.
They know their work very well. You don't need to go and tell a front end engineer that you might do this.
Yeah.
They know their shit very well.
Yeah.
So, what's your hiring philosophy? Like, what 2 or 3 things or 5 things, or what do you look in a person when you make a decision?
I mean, I honestly think there aren't that many things. Most times I think I know if I want to hire or not in the first 5-10 minutes of a conversation, right? Very few people have been able to persuade me otherwise. I have even hired people with a single conversation in 10 minutes, not in the recent past, but when very early days of First Main, when there were few of us. So and I still think even today those are probably some of my best decisions, right? And fundamentally, especially in today's world with all the AI tools out there, I would say there are only 2 things that matter. One, do you have the skills? And 2, do you culturally fit into what we are doing, right? And 2 is far more important than 1, because there are a lot of people with the skills, right? And it is very easy to filter out the ones who don't have the skills. It's very easy. I mean, there was a interview question that we used to use for engineers, and about a year ago, I was like, you know what, let me put this into ChatGPT. And ChatGPT would give me the answer. So if there is an engineer interviewing with me who cannot answer that question, why would I hire him or her when ChatGPT can do it for me in like 10 seconds, right? So the skill filtering can happen very, very quickly. The culture filtering, I would say that, that's where you can go wrong sometimes. But typically once the person joins, you do know very quickly. That's why I love internships, because it's like a long interview process. So you know for sure if this person's going to work or not.
A very personal question. What do you saw in me?
I mean, I think you have that startup attitude of, do whatever you need to get things done, whatever it is, right? Whether it's write a piece of code or some shoot that needs to happen or data analytics. And it's really that that was encouraging for me. You've got the mindset to work at a startup and get shit done.
Yeah, I think
and your attention to detail is good as well.
I didn't know that. That is something I have been told first time. But yes, I think because I also had my own career, right? And I know that any company or any startup is 70% about execution and only 30% about ideation. If you ideate a very good idea, right? You make a PPT, you make a deck.
Yeah.
But if you are not able to put it together, that's not gonna work. I mean, there would be a graveyard of PPTs out there of startup founders, right?
Yeah.
Who wanted to do it, but they have not made it, right? So
Yeah.
I think get shit done is the only motto of a startup.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was quite shocked when I heard you were calling clients on your second day. I was like, wait, what? Does he even know what our app does? So yeah.
No,
Initially I was a bit scared, and then I was like, no, I think this is fine.
No, I hope I did justice.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, thanks. If today you were about to start your career again, right? Let's say you were 21, with zero network, but the same goal which you have right now, right? What would you do?
I don't think I would do anything differently. I really feel like those 10 years set me up with, one, the money to start something, and 2, the discipline to and the professionalism to run a business and work with people, right? A level working in the UK and US and coming to India, I think I brought a level of professionalism that you just don't see everywhere so easily. And starting a company with that experience made a big difference. Even when working with clients, like one of the things that people really liked was the professionalism that we brought to the table. And I think that we were also able to train up the team around us to be like that, right? Being on time with meetings, put your camera on Zoom and meet calls. Like that was just those were just non-negotiables when, especially on client calls. So I think that also made a very, very big difference and just brought a level of maturity that you otherwise may not have. So I honestly don't think I would have done anything differently.
Or if you were to give out a piece of advice to a 21-year-old, right? Or let's say a piece of advice to your own daughter when she will be 18 or 21, right? What that would be? A very concentrated juice of your learnings, right? Which you think is a gold mine. If anyone is starting out, they need to know this.
I honestly think the best thing for anyone to do, and I know this sounds cliched, but it really is to do something that you enjoy, right? And that is the only way that you will excel at it, at anything. I remember very clearly having a conversation with a colleague of mine at Morgan Stanley, was it? I think. Yeah, at Morgan Stanley in New York, where this guy was basically telling me that he wanted to be a doctor, but his parents forced him to be an engineer, right? And he was just not a good engineer. In fact, we let him go at one point. So I think that if you don't do something that you are passionate about, whatever it is, it will come to bite you at some point. Maybe not today, maybe not in 6 months, maybe it'll be many years later, but it is extremely important that you get into something that you enjoy. Now, I understand that's a luxury that I had and many people may not, but fundamentally get into a job that'll, give you enough money to do what you enjoy doing. Don't take a job because it pays well.
Because life is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah,
right? You need
absolutely.
to go slow and in your own pace.
Correct.
Nice. What is success today for you versus what was it for you when probably 10, 15 years before? What is the meaning? How do you define success for you now?
I mean, I honestly don't think that definition has changed very much for me. I have always wanted to do something in India that has some form of significant impact in people's lives. And even when we started First Main, the idea was, can we build products, experiences that can make things better for many people, right? And we did that through working with multiple startups, large organizations, whatever. Even today, with MyFi, the goal really is, how do we make investing more accessible? So it's a different form, but ultimately it is again about touching more lives, having wider impact, right? And I think on some level, I've just always wanted to do things like that. Maybe it's my dad's influence. It just drives me in that sense. So I don't think that has changed. I think the only thing that perhaps changes is that with every one of these milestones, the level of impact has to be bigger, right? I think if you just changed on 100 lives, I don't know. I mean, maybe that is some impact, but once you've done 100 lives, then you need to do 1,000 lives and 100,000 lives, a lakh, 10 lakhs more, right? So the scale of what I do perhaps changes with every milestone. So that is the only thing that is shifting.
How do you think your father influenced you? I mean, you mentioned him many times, right? So, and how do you think you want to influence your own daughter? I mean, what dynamics do you think it works on, right?
I mean, I think fundamentally it's, being grounded. There is, with success, with, as you grow, as things work for you, you have an exit or something like that. I think there is a risk that you could get complacent. You could forget where you came from and forget the simple things, right? And I think that, I mean, whether it was my dad, I also went to boarding school in Rishi Valley, where you basically, till my 8th or 9th standard, I didn't even have fans in my bedroom, in our dorm rooms, right? And this is in Andhra. You can imagine how hot it is, right? We would like sweep the floors, mop the floors, do all kinds of things, where you're really kind of staying in touch with everyday chores, so to speak, right? Now, and I think that simplicity and the ability to do all of that is extremely important. Even today, I would very happily pick up glasses, clean the desks and things like that if the help wasn't around. And I think there are a lot of people, and I remember this very distinctly in our previous office. Our office help had not come, right? And people had coffee and not taken the cups and put it back in the sink. So I went and picked up the cups and started putting it back in the sink. And everyone was like, Kiran, don't do this. Like, we will clean it up. And I was like, firstly, you should have done it anyway. And there is nothing wrong in me doing it. So just relax. So I feel like people have started to become more privileged in some ways, or this is not for me to, this is not my job, right? And I find that very problematic, because if you're not able to be independent on multiple levels, then somehow it does affect the way you function, right? So really, and that's important, because nothing should be below you in that sense, which is why I also have a very big problem when anyone calls anyone sir, right? Like, I really don't believe that anyone is above or below someone else, right? And at the end of the day, we're all equals. It doesn't matter if you have 20 years of experience or like 2 months of experience. It doesn't, right? We're all the same and on multiple levels. So I think that false sense of hierarchy and things like that is quite problematic also. So I think that's one very big piece of advice, influence, things that's come between my upbringing, whether it's my dad, my school, and all of that. Yeah.
I think it took me like 10-15 days to not call you sir. Because it comes from
Yes.
by default.
Yeah. Also in college, I guess your professors are all
In college,
sir, and
if there's a guy who is 1 year senior to you, right? If I'm in second year, there's someone in third year, I need to call them bhaiya. Right? So
Yeah.
I think the hierarchy comes within, right? But yes, I think what I actually think about this, humility and being consistent with people, right? Have a feeling of everyone is equal. And what I figured out was that see other people's success as a result of their hard work and see your success as a luck. Right? If you think about it, it will keep you humiliated. Because when you see other people's success as their hard work, you respect them. Right? You don't take anyone for granted. And when you see your success as luck, you stay humiliated. You don't get into ego.
I have a very different view on luck. I think the only thing that you are lucky about is the family you were born into. Everything else, you have a choice, but
No.
it's just my view.
I mean, luck is a result of consistent trials. Right? You pinpoint each and every point out, and probably one or the other will made right. I mean, how did I land up here?
Yeah.
I didn't have the CGPA of getting an internship on campus, but I wanted to have an experience. So I started out reaching everyone, right? And luckily,
Yeah.
someone replied, and I was here. Uh, Today, when because you have already seen success, right? When you wake up in the morning, what drives you? Like, why do you even want to wake up early in the morning, go to the gym, and manage this amount of stress when you already have seen success?
I don't know. I think personality wise, also, I feel I could never sit still. I always want to do more. I also think that, sure, I have succeeded in that, sold the first company that we started, but I mean, it's a very small milestone. I don't think that I could ever go back to working in the corporate world or doing any of those more boring jobs. So for me, if it's not this, it'll be another startup, or working with another startup or something like that. So I think it just drives me to do new innovative things that could have a large impact, and using AI technology design to do that just excites me. It does. I can do it day and night and not get bored. So it's not, yeah. I think success should not keep you still. If anything, it should motivate you more.
Got it. And what do you think about money? Right? How much is money important to you right now? I mean, yes, money is the driving force of this world, right? And nothing is the base or the most fundamental thing is money. Everyone needs it, but what do you think about money? Right? How much is it important to you, and how does it play an important role right now?
I mean, I think that I have had different amounts of money through my life, up and down, right? Especially when we were running first main bootstrapped, it was pretty challenging. I think that money is a side effect of a successful product, business, something like that you build, but it's certainly not what drives me to wake up every morning and do something. Do I enjoy certain luxuries? I'm sure I do, but I would be perfectly fine not to have some of those things if circumstances required me not to.
I think this pattern is something which I've noticed in people who are really making an impact or are successful. Money isn't the driving force. Right?
I think if money is the driving force, it would be very hard to be an entrepreneur, firstly, because the pressures while you build up a product or business are very real, and the money is very little. Of course, if it's successful, that's very different, but it's very hard to wake up in the morning and make money a driving factor. Well, at least for me.
Right. How do you upgrade yourself right now? Not also in terms of tech and whatever you love, right? But what's your go-to place to refresh your mind and keep yourself in touch with yourself, right? That how do you monitor that? Okay, am I doing the right things? Am I doing the wrong things? Right? What do you do?
It's interesting you ask that question because I feel like the past 6 months have been very different from the past many years in many ways. Since sort of end of last year, beginning of this year, I've made a lot of changes. I go to the gym and work out almost every other weekday. I have started doing more breathing exercises, having like quiet meditative time, and all of that really allows me to focus a lot more, right, and have a lot more clarity in what I want to do. So I think, and I feel like I spend less hours in front of my laptop, but I do think I'm far more efficient with my work. So this again goes back to that point of clarity and focus, because you need to be able to prioritize what's important and what's not, right? I think that a lot of people try to do many things at the same time, and that just results in nothing finishing well. So it's really important to make a list and prioritize and focus on the ones at the top of the list. I've also been journaling on and off a little bit, not frequently enough, but I think writing in general also creates a lot of clarity with your hand, with a pen, not with a laptop and a screen. So often when I'm flying, I just use that time to kind of write. It's just thoughts kind of flowing. It just allows you to kind of think about the important points again, focus, and come to some sort of conclusion. So I do think that it's important to have that balance of non-work related things, whatever that is, whether it's playing a sport, going to the gym, going for a walk. It doesn't have to be something intense. It just needs to be something that's allowing you to clear your mind. I go for a run as well. So those are all, and a lot of these changes have happened in the last 6 months. I ran a 10K in April, yeah. So I mean, just multiple things like that, which I feel has allowed me to have a lot more clarity and be far more efficient with work as well.
I feel running is therapeutic.
Yeah, running's
you
great.
just go on a trail and just at your own pace,
Yeah.
right? You don't say anything.
Yeah.
What are your priorities right now? As not as also as a CEO, as a co-founder, as a partner, right? But more as what you are as a person, right? At this stage, what are your priorities?
I mean, I think right now in life I have two priorities. One is making MyFi successful and figuring out a way to kind of build that business, both direct to consumer and through other B2B partnerships. And the other is just moving homes and settling down. So I think I have this habit of moving houses all the time. I think if you look from 2007 to now, I think I've been through some 16 moves every other year, whether it's moving countries, moving houses. Always been a strong believer in renting, but going to move to our own house and just make that home for the foreseeable future. So those are my only two priorities right now.
I don't have any much questions. I wanted to know you as a person, as someone who has made something and try to get your, your frameworks which your brain is running through, right? And I think I was able to learn some of it, right? Anything which you would like to tell or anything?
No, I think I honestly have covered most of what I wanted to say. and I don't know if I have much to add to that. It yeah, it was a good chat and a mix of both personal and professional things. I think it's more personal things than I've spoken about in a long time with anyone else. So, thank you.
Yep. How was your experience on the podcast?
It was good. It was yeah. Not. I've been on a couple of other podcasts, but I don't think anyone's asked me as many personal questions before. Yeah. What do you think?
I think I loved it. So I am a big podcast consumer, right? And my motivation to listen to a podcast is, yes, learn business, learn whatever the topic is, but also know a person, right? Because I feel a
Yeah.
business might die out, a project might fail,
Yeah.
but a person would never quit, right? Or a person's mindset would never go off.
Yeah.
So I think that is something which would stay consistent. If you are successful in learning other people's mindset, know how this person is functioning, or know in general how people think,
Yeah.
I think you have won your battles halfway.
I agree. I agree.
So that's why I think my motivation was this. No agenda, nothing. I think I had 5 to 6 points which I covered, and it was a big goal.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for it.